One could argue walking in the dark looking for trouble is like running your production system without observability. Observability gives you visibility into your system so that you know what's going on. So this video is about how you can enable observability in your Ballerina programs. So when we talk about observability, we usually talk about three things, and they are logs, tracing, and metrics. In this video, I'll be talking about tracing and metrics. So let's go to our VS Code. Here you can see a Ballerina service. This is the service I'll be using to show observability features in Ballerina. So let me go to diagram view and click on the service we have. And here you can see there are a bunch of resources. If I just click on one of these, you can see this resource is a simple one, which actually talks to some endpoint. Here you can see it's a social media database. So when the request hits this resource, it talks to this social media database, get some data and send it back. Here the important point is there is one external endpoint to which this resource talks to. So if I just go back and click on something more interesting, so here you can see this is a post resource which creates post. So if I click on this, here you can see there are two endpoints. One is the social media DB, the one we saw earlier, and then here you can see another endpoint called sentiment endpoint. So basically what happens is that when you get a request, it talks to this database, gets some data. If there is an error, send back a response. Otherwise the flow continues, and then it talks to sentiment endpoint and get some data, do some processing, and if there is some error, it sends back the error response. Otherwise again it talks to the database. This time it's a write operation, and then eventually send back the response. Here the important thing you guys need to know is this resource actually talks to two different endpoints, and there are actually three network calls. So I'll be observing this resource in a minute because this one is more interesting than the other ones. So that's my service at a high level. So in order to enable observability for this service, what you need to do is add a config terminal, just like I have done here, and you just need to add these entries. So here you can see I have enabled metrics, and the metrics reporter is Prometheus, and then I have enabled tracing, and the tracing provider is Jaeger. Alright, so now we can run this service and see what we can actually observe. Actually, before we start the service, we just need to do one more thing. So go back to your VS Code and go to your source code. Here you just need to import two modules. One is for Prometheus and the other one is for Jaeger. Okay, I have started the service. So now let's just send some requests to populate Jaeger and Prometheus endpoints. So let's create a user, get users. Maybe we can create a post, which is the important one as I explained earlier, and maybe we can get post. Okay, so I have sent some request. So now if we go to the browser, Here you can see this is the Grafana homepage. I have already logged into that. And on the other tab, you can see the Jaeger homepage. I have already logged into that as well. Okay, so let's start with Jaeger. This is the service I just want to trace. Let's click on that and click on Find Traces. Alright, so here you can see there are a bunch of requests. So if I just click on maybe this one, the one in which we create post, here you can see there are a bunch of spans, and if I just do like this, here you can see I have the service, and then here you can see the database call, the first one, and then here you can see the HTTP call. Here what we do is, if I just click on tags, you can see that this actually sends the request to this endpoint, and the response status code is 201. Similarly, there are a bunch of other data as well. And if I just expand the last one, here you can just see the last database call, which is the write operation. Okay, so likewise you can get a bunch of information related to tracing. So if I just go to Grafana, here first thing you need to do is you need to add a data source. Okay, so my session has expired, so let me just log in again. Maybe skip this one. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to add a data source. So I'll just click on Prometheus, and then I'll just give this endpoint and click save and test. Okay, it works. Now if we go back to home page, now we can create a dashboard. I have already created a dashboard and exported it, so I'll just import that dashboard into this one. So click on import dashboard. So if you go to VS Code, here you can see there's a JSON. So I'll just select that and copy all the elements. Go back to the browser and paste it here. Okay, so the name is Ballerina Matrix. The folder is dashboards. Here I just need to select the data source I just created. Okay, all good. Okay, now you can see a bunch of dashboards. So this one is related to the HTTP service. Here you can see the request, errors. I don't have any errors at the moment. In progress request, throughput, response time percentiles. Likewise, there are a bunch of information. So if I just scroll down, here you can see information or metrics related to Ballerina HTTP client. So as you guys can remember, in the resource where we create post, there is HTTP call, so this information is related to that. Here also you can see request per minute, errors, throughput, that kind of stuff. And if I scroll further, here you can see metrics related to the SQL client. Again, you can see similar type of information. So to make it more interesting, maybe we can just shut down one of the services and send a request and see, like one of the supporting services. Maybe I'll stop the HTTP endpoint. Okay, I have stopped the service. This is the service I just stopped. Sentiment endpoint. Here you can see when you create a new post, it sends a post request to this endpoint. So let's go back to our HTTP file and send some request to create a post. As expected, it returns some error. Let's send a few more. Okay, so I get the expected error. So now let's go back to our dashboards and see what we can see. So let's just refresh. And here you can see a bunch of errors as expected because that particular endpoint is down. Okay, so if you go to Jaeger and find traces related to the particular service, here you can see there are a bunch of failed requests as expected. And here you can see this particular request is the problematic one. Here you can see it returns 502 instead of 201. Okay, so that's about Ballerina observability. So these dashboards lets you debug any possible production issues. But if you want custom dashboards, you can create custom dashboards as well. Okay, so that's about Ballerina observability. If you want to try out this on your own, you can just go to this repository and clone the repo, and then you can just follow the instruction here to try out the service. So it's pretty straightforward. You just need to run this one and then do docker compose up. It will start all the required services, and then you can just send request and see the dashboards.